Captain Maya Ortiz's mouth filled with blood as the UES Defiance emergency systems failed. The bridge illumination flickered to crimson as another blast from the Void Herald ship rocked them sideways. Through the cracked viewport, she watched 3 more Galactic Council vessels disintegrate under concentrated particle fire.
Hull breach on decks 4 through 7.
Her XO shouted over the klaxons.
We're losing atmosphere.
Maya spat blood onto the deck and hauled herself back into the command chair.
Seal those sections. Get survivors to emergency pods.
6 hours ago, humanity had been the laughingstock of the galaxy, the fumbling newcomers who'd barely mastered faster-than-light travel. The 17 established species, some spacefaring for 50 millennia, had relegated Earth's delegation to observer status at the Grand Centennial Conclave. Now those ancient civilizations were being systematically exterminated.
Status on the Council flagship?
Maya demanded. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across his shattered console.
The Eternal Harmony is intact, but immobilized. Their primary systems are offline.
On the main display, the elegant Kelvari vessel hung dead in space, its once beautiful bioluminescent hull now dark, save for emergency beacons. The ship contained the combined leadership of the Galactic Council, the most powerful beings in known space, now helpless as the Void Herald dreadnought moved methodically from target to target, destroying the gathered fleet.
What about the distress call?
Maya wiped blood from her eyes.
Still broadcasting, Captain.
Chen confirmed.
But the nearest reinforcements are hours away.
Hours they didn't have. The Heralds, nightmarish entities thought to be mere legend, had erupted from the shadowed zone without warning. Their ships, massive obsidian structures that seemed to drink in light, had appeared during the Conclave's opening ceremony, immediately jamming communications and targeting the military escorts. Maya had watched in horror as the mighty Morrigan battlecruisers, reputed to be undefeatable, were cut to pieces by weapons that bypassed their shields entirely. The Elysian world ships, with defenses evolved over millennia, fared no better.
Why aren't they firing on us?
Her tactical officer wondered aloud. Maya had been wondering the same thing. The Defiant, Earth's contribution to the ceremonial fleet, was a diplomatic vessel with minimal armaments. Yet while the Heralds methodically destroyed the Council ships, they'd merely disabled the Defiant with a glancing blow.
They don't consider us a threat.
She realized.
We're so technologically inferior, they're saving us for last.
A bitter laugh escaped her bloodied lips. How ironic. After decades of condescension from the established species, humanity's primitiveness might buy them precious minutes to live. The bridge door hissed open, and Ambassador Tol Ren of the Kelvari staggered in, his elegant blue skin marred with burns, his ceremonial robes torn and stained. Behind him came the massive form of Drog Tahal, the Morrigan war chief.
Captain Ortiz,
Tol Ren gasped, clutching a wound at his side.
We need your help.
Maya stared at him incredulously. Just yesterday, this same ambassador had lectured her about humanity's regrettable fixation on weaponry and their barbaric military traditions.
Our help?
She echoed.
What happened to humans lack the temperament for galactic affairs.
There's no time for past grievances,
The ambassador pleaded.
The Council leadership is trapped aboard the Harmony. If they die, galactic civilization collapses.
War Chief Drog Tahal stepped forward, his granite-like features set in grim determination.
The Heralds have neutralized our advanced systems, our quantum shields, our neural networks, our consciousness-guided weapons, all useless.
And you think our primitive technology will fare better?
Maya asked skeptically.
Not your technology,
Tol Ren replied.
your savagery.
Maya blinked.
Excuse me?
Drog Tahal's rumbling voice filled the bridge.
For 30,000 years, the Morrigan have been the warriors of the galaxy. But we fight with honor, with rules, with civilization.
He spat the last word.
We have forgotten what humans never had the luxury to forget.
How to fight dirty.
Maya supplied.
Precisely.
Tol Ren's gill structures pulsed with desperation.
The historical archives we accessed from your world show a species that has waged war in ways unimaginable to us. Asymmetrical combat, guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare.
You've been spying on us?
We've been studying you.
The ambassador corrected.
Every species is evaluated. Yours was concerning. The sheer variety of conflict in your history.
Our greatest shame.
Maya interrupted.
Perhaps.
Tolren conceded.
Or perhaps your salvation. And ours.
Maya studied the tactical display. The Herald dreadnought had just obliterated another council vessel and was moving toward the helpless flagship. Time was running out.
What exactly are you asking?
We need a plan that no civilized species would conceive.
Drogtahal stated.
We need human thinking.
Maya exchanged glances with her officers. For years they'd endured patronizing treatment from the galactic community. Now those same advanced beings were begging for the primitive tactics they'd once disdained.
Chen, what's the status of our conventional weapons?
She asked.
Railguns operational. Missile bays damaged, but 2 still functioning. Not enough to penetrate their defenses.
Drogtahal growled.
I wasn't planning to.
Maya stood.
What we lack in firepower, we make up for in audacity. XO, I need volunteers for a boarding party.
The Kelvari ambassador's eyes widened.
Boarding! You can't be serious. Their hulls are impenetrable.
To energy weapons, yes.
Maya agreed.
But according to your own scans, they're solid matter. And there's no such thing as impenetrable matter, just insufficient application of force.
She pointed to the display.
We'll use our remaining missiles not as weapons, but as distractions. While their point defense systems are occupied, we'll accelerate the ship to maximum velocity and then cut engines.
Understanding dawned on Lieutenant Chen's face.
Ballistic trajectory. They won't register us as an active threat if we're not emitting energy.
And then?
Tolren asked.
And then we ram them.
The bridge fell silent.
Your ship will be destroyed.
Drogtahal stated flatly.
Not if we aim for this junction.
Maya indicated a nexus where the Herald ship's central structure connected to its propulsion array.
We'll breach their hull with our own. The boarding party will enter through the rupture, place fusion charges at these key structural points, and retreat before detonation.
The Morrigan war chief studied the plan. Suicide.
High risk.
Maya corrected.
But not suicide. Not if we time it perfectly.
And when has a military operation ever gone perfectly?
Tolren demanded.
Never.
Maya admitted.
That's why we always have contingencies, backup plans, dirty tricks.
She fixed the ambassador with a hard stare.
This is human warfare, Ambassador. It's ugly, it's brutal, and it's exactly what you asked for.
After a long moment, Drogtahal stepped forward.
I will join your boarding party.
Maya nodded.
We'll need your strength.
The massive alien placed a stone-like fist against his chest in salute.
It will be an honor to fight alongside humans. Perhaps there is more to learn from your species than we acknowledged.
If we survive,
Maya replied grimly.
there'll be time for cultural exchange later.
She turned to her crew.
I need volunteers for the boarding party. This mission is...
Save it, Captain.
Her XO interrupted.
We all heard the plan. We're in.
One by one, her bridge officers nodded their assent. Maya felt a swell of pride.
Prep boarding gear, combat suits, anything explosive.
She glanced at the ambassador.
Unless the Council has suddenly developed something useful?
Tolren hesitated, then reached inside his robes. He withdrew a small crystalline device.
This contains access codes to Herald technology from the last incursion 10,000 years ago. We don't know if they're still valid.
Why didn't you use these before?
Maya demanded.
Because they require direct neural interface. The implantation process is usually fatal.
Usually?
No non-Herald species has survived it.
Tolren admitted.
The Council deemed the risk too great.
Maya took the crystal.
So instead you watched your people die.
We assumed our technology had advanced enough to defeat them conventionally.
The ambassador said quietly.
We were wrong.
Captain, they've started moving toward the flagship.
Chen reported urgently.
4 minutes until they're in firing range.
Then we're out of time for debate.
Maya tossed the crystal to her science officer.
Analyze this. Find a way to interface that won't kill us.
She turned to address the bridge.
We have one shot, one primitive, desperate human shot.
She allowed herself a grim smile.
Fortunately, desperate gambles are something of a specialty for our species.
The plan unfolded in controlled chaos. While the science team worked frantically to decode the ancient interface, engineering rigged the Defiant for its suicide run. Missile bays were realigned for maximum distraction potential. The boarding party, a mix of human crew and Morrigan warriors, armed themselves with everything from plasma cutters to improvised explosives.
Captain, we've got something.
The science officer called, holding up the crystal.
The interface isn't physiological, it's mathematical. It needs a specific thought pattern.
Which is?
Chaos theory. The heralds think in fractal patterns. The interface requires someone who can calculate multi-dimensional fractals in real time.
Maya frowned.
Can our computers handle that?
They're too linear. We need a human brain that can.
I can do it.
Chen interrupted. When everyone turned to stare, he shrugged.
I minored in chaos mathematics at the academy?
That's not the same as.
The science officer began.
It's close enough.
Maya decided.
Chen, you're with the boarding party. Ambassador, you're staying here to coordinate with any council reinforcements that arrive. War Chief, you'll lead the second team to rescue your council leaders.
Tolren stepped forward.
Captain Ortiz,
He hesitated, then straightened.
on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally acknowledge humanity's full membership status, effective immediately.
Maya raised an eyebrow.
Bit late for that, isn't it?
Perhaps, the ambassador admitted.
But it needed to be said.
Save it for when we get back.
Maya replied.
If we survive this, the Council and humanity are going to have a long, uncomfortable conversation about galactic politics.
The missile barrage launched, bright streaks against the void. As predicted, the Herald Dreadnought's defenses activated, tracking and destroying each one. In that moment of distraction, the Defiant accelerated to maximum velocity on a collision course with the massive ship, then cut all power. Tumbling through space, running on minimal life support, the human vessel became effectively invisible to Herald sensors calibrated to detect energy signatures. They drifted toward the junction point, the crew bracing for impact. The collision was both more violent and more perfect than Maya had dared hope. The reinforced prow of the Defiant punched through the Herald hull like a spear, embedding itself deep enough to create a stable bridge between the vessels. Alarms blared as atmosphere vented, but the boarding teams were already moving in pressurized combat gear. Maya led her team through the jagged breach into alien territory. The interior of the Herald ship was like nothing she'd ever seen. Organic curves combined with impossible geometries, surfaces that seemed to shift when not directly observed.
Chen, get that interface working.
She ordered as they secured the breach point. The lieutenant pressed the crystal against a pulsing section of wall. His eyes unfocused as he began muttering mathematical formulas, his fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. After several tense moments, sections of the wall reconfigured, revealing a map of the vessel.
I've got control of local systems,
Chen reported.
but they know we're here.
Maya nodded to Drogtahal.
Take your team and find the council leaders. We'll plant the charges and meet back here in 15 minutes.
The Morrigan war chief nodded solemnly.
Fight well, human.
You too, alien.
The teams separated, racing against time. Through Chen's interface, they managed to avoid the ship's automated defenses, but soon encountered the heralds themselves. They were nightmarish entities, vaguely humanoid but with limbs that bent at impossible angles, their bodies seeming to exist partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. Conventional weapons proved frustratingly ineffective. Energy beams passed through them as if they weren't fully present in normal space. But Maya had anticipated this.
Switch to kinetics!
She shouted, drawing her sidearm. The simple projectile weapon, considered hopelessly archaic by council standards, fired bullets of dense tungsten. The first herald dropped as the slugs tore through its partially phased form.
Primitive but effective.
Her exo commented, following suit. They fought their way to the primary power junction, planting fusion charges at key structural points. Meanwhile, Drogtahal's team located the council leadership in stasis fields and began the extraction process. Everything was proceeding according to plan, until it wasn't.
Captain, we have a problem.
Chen's voice came through the comm.
I'm detecting a massive energy buildup. They're preparing to jump to hyperspace.
Can you stop it?
Negative. And if they jump while we're still connected to the Defiant...
Maya understood immediately. Their ship would be torn apart by the dimensional stresses.
How long?
3 minutes maximum.
Not enough time to retreat. Maya made the call.
Activate the charges. Tell Drogtahal he has 2 minutes to get the council leaders out.
But Captain...
Do it, Chen.
Her team fought their way back toward the breach point, encountering increasingly desperate resistance as the heralds realized their intention. By the time they reached the junction, Drogtahal's team was arriving with a dozen semi-conscious council members.
The charges?
The Morrigan asked.
90 seconds.
Maya replied.
Get them aboard the Defiant.
As the evacuation proceeded, Maya felt the deck beneath her feet begin to vibrate. The hyperspace drive was spooling up faster than expected.
Chen, how many more?
4 council members and 6 of our crew still unaccounted for,
he reported grimly. 60 seconds. Not enough time. Maya made another call, the hardest of her career.
Get everyone on board now. We're leaving.
Captain...
That's an order, Lieutenant.
As the last evacuees stumbled through the breach, Maya turned to Chen.
Get aboard. Take command of the Defiant. Put as much distance between us and this ship as possible.
His eyes widened.
You're staying?
Someone needs to make sure those charges blow before they jump.
She pressed her command codes into his hand.
The Council needs to understand what happened here today. They need to know that humanity didn't just save them. We changed the rules of engagement.
I can stay.
Your skills are more valuable to the survivors.
She gave him a push toward the breach.
That's my final order, Lieutenant. Make it count.
After a moment of hesitation, Chen saluted and retreated through the breach. Maya watched as emergency protocols severed the connection between the vessels, the Defiant pulling away with precious seconds to spare. Alone on the Herald ship, Maya made her way toward the central core, fighting through waves of defenders. The charges would detonate automatically, but she had one final task: to ensure the ship couldn't escape the blast radius. She found the navigation chamber, a swirling vortex of holographic displays showing fractal patterns she couldn't begin to comprehend. But she didn't need to understand them to destroy them. As the countdown reached 10 seconds, Maya emptied her weapon into the control interfaces, then used her last grenade to rupture what appeared to be a critical power conduit. Alarms sounded throughout the vessel as the hyperspace jump faltered. 5 seconds. Maya thought of Earth, the planet she'd never see again, of the council species who had dismissed humanity as barbaric, primitive, unworthy. Today they had learned that primitive didn't mean ineffective. 3 seconds. She smiled grimly. Sometimes survival required getting your hands dirty. 1 second. The charges detonated in sequence, the carefully planned destruction tearing through the Herald Dreadnought's critical systems. The chain reaction reached the damaged hyperspace drive, creating a catastrophic dimensional rift that consumed the vessel from within. Aboard the retreating Defiant, Chen watched as the Herald ship imploded in a silent flash of light, taking Captain Ortiz with it. Beside him, Ambassador Tolren stood in stunned silence.
She sacrificed herself,
The Kelavari whispered.
She completed the mission.
Chen corrected.
That's what humans do.
The surviving council members gathered on the bridge, watching as the debris field stabilized. Many were still recovering from their ordeal, but all understood the significance of what had occurred. High Elder Vexa of the Elysians stepped forward.
For millennia, we dismissed humanity as too aggressive, too unpredictable for full galactic citizenship. Today, we stand corrected.
Today,
Drogtahal rumbled.
the youngest species taught the oldest how to survive.
Chen turned from the viewport.
Captain Ortiz had a message for the Council. She said humanity didn't just save you. We changed the rules of engagement.
Ambassador Tolren's gill structures pulsed with emotion.
And so you have, Lieutenant. So you have.
One by one, the council members bowed their heads in respect, ancient beings acknowledging the sacrifice of a species they had once considered beneath them.
Last to the stars.
Drogtahal intoned.
First to the fight.
Chen finished. As distress beacons flickered in the void and distant reinforcements approached, the survivors aboard the Defiant stood in silence, united not by technology or history or biology, but by the universal language of survival. In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons that had turned the tide. It was their willingness to do what civilized beings had forgotten. Sometimes, salvation came not from advancement, but from remembering the brutal lessons of the past. Sometimes the primitive path was the only way forward,